Streetscapes, urban landscapes. In this video, you're going to learn exactly how to capture them. Let's jump straight in. First off, what exactly are streetscapes or urban landscapes? Essentially, they are the physical features of a street, encompassing buildings, open spaces, city rivers, and all the other elements that form the urban environment. Think street photography, but you are less focused on the stories of the people and more focused on the stories of the streets. With your camera and your lens, you're observing the architecture, the aesthetic qualities of the street, the bends, the contours, the details and the textures. And most importantly, you're showing the viewer of your photos what the street does for the people who inhabit it. So what's the difference between streetscapes and urban landscapes? Streetscapes focus on a single street or part of it, showing off details like buildings, sidewalks, and how people use the space. Urban landscapes, on the other hand, take a step back to capture the bigger area, like neighborhoods or city skylines and city rivers that are visible in the context of the cityscape. However, all we want to do is take photos of streetscapes and urban landscapes, and they're pretty similar, so it's best not to get too hung up on the differences. Now, should your urban landscapes and streetscapes include people or not? Well, both approaches have their merits. Including people can add a sense of scale and bring a scene to life, showing how the space is used, and will give the photo that human connection for the viewer. On the other hand, a photo without people can emphasize the architecture and the environment itself, often evoking a sense of stillness or abandonment. And it can highlight the industriousness of humanity in creating specific streets or iconic buildings and structures. So try both methods and see what works for your vision. When I'm shooting urban landscapes and streetscapes, I shoot both with people and without people. There are some interesting questions to ask yourself before taking a shot, whether you want to include people or not. Is it a quiet street where people pass through? Is it a busy, iconic street where people congregate, sit down and eat? Or is it a street where people even party and are there to have a good time? Or is it just a historical, beautifully structured street? These are the things that might inform you whether to shoot the street with people or without. You can evoke a sense of loneliness by capturing a solitary person walking down a specific street, or you can capture a sense of joy and hustle and bustle by capturing people having a good time and conversing. So also think about the mood that you want to get across for the viewers of your photos. Now, these are some of my favourite shots of the day when I was out shooting for this video, as you've got these guys respectively chilling out and texting in front of the iconic St. Paul's Cathedral in the distance. And you just can't go wrong capturing a man who's literally wearing his paintings on his face and all over his body, standing on the opposite side of the river of the cathedral. With urban landscapes, you can treat them like landscape photography with a specific foreground, subject area, and a background. Or you can use one of my favourite techniques, leading lines. By emphasising an element of the composition, such as the pavement, or a sidewalk, or a wall, or the tarmac in the road, you can create depth and give your images a layering effect. You can do this by having the leading line trail down from the centre of the image into one of the corners, or depending upon the architectural feature of the street, have it trailing down into both corners of the image. In these shots, I managed to capture this awesome leading line that trails down the walkway that leads up to Tower Bridge in the distance. And in this shot, I deliberately used a curved barrier as a leading line. Leading lines are everywhere, so just keep your eyes peeled and see how you can use pavements, walls and streets creatively in your shots. By emphasizing foreground objects, you can also create a layering effect that adds depth to your photos. In this shot, I use this deep tree holder thingy as a foreground object, which also happens to point to the subject who is standing in front of the building. And then in this image, I deliberately place the camera in front of this flower bed so that the flowers work as a foreground object, which contrasts with the building in the background. So you've got this contrast of organic and man-made. And in this shot, I deliberately wanted to use the painted road signs on the tarmac as subtle foreground objects, which add a visual interest and lead into the scene. Just like leading lines, you can find foreground objects in abundance, so see how you can work them into your compositions, because once you start regularly shooting foreground objects, it becomes much easier to strategically place them in your compositions. As I just said before, you can treat urban landscapes and streetscapes like landscape photography with a specific foreground, subject area and background. Specifically with landscape photography, you want to be shooting at sunset or at a time that I would simply never shoot at because I simply cannot get up for sunrises. But the good news is with streetscapes and urban landscapes, you can shoot at any time of the day, just like with street photography. I love the bright sunshine and the harsh shadows that you can get from different elements within a street, and even the shadows that since the dawn of time follow human subjects. Obviously, the sun changes position throughout the day, and if you have a particular street in mind that you want to shoot, it might be worth checking out what time of day the sun trails down the road. And you can do this with various apps such as Photo Ephemeris, which I've used from time to time. It's good practice to learn what time of day the light is at its best on a particular street, especially if you're going to shoot that particular street or a specific area. I was fortunate that the sun came out when I headed into Chinatown during the afternoon of my shoot. It not only makes everything and everyone more vibrant, you also get that added interest of the shadows of those lanterns up above zigzagging across the ground. So always look to see what kind of shadows are casting on sunny days. In this image, you could see that you can easily grab a silhouette if the light is illuminating behind your subject, and I couldn't resist heading to the Barbican where there always seems to be good light, no matter what the weather. And I think I've worked out that's because you've got these openings on one side of the walkways where any light, even if it's overcast, spills in from one side and is in direct contrast with the closed off shadow side of the walkways. Side light can create a striking effect as it highlights textures and adds depth to your photos and form to your subjects, with highlights on one side and shadows on the other. So if you live somewhere with a similar building such as the Barbican, make sure that you can head down there with your camera if it's safe to do so, because you should be able to get the same kind of natural light spilling in any kind of weather condition. Just a heads up, if you're getting something out of this video, please give us a like and please subscribe for more tutorials and explorations. I always appreciate it. Of course, you can quite easily practice the fishing technique when you're shooting urban landscapes and streetscapes. Just find the right composition with the right light, if it actually exists in the UK, frame up and then wait for the perfect subject to walk into the composition and then snap away at the right moment. If you're impatient, become patient, because the rewards of capturing that photo that you can be really proud of is worth it. It helps if you know a location well, and I know this location at the Barbican so well, so I knew exactly where to stand and wait for the right subject to enter the shots. And in this shot, I was fortunate that somebody was standing in this position as I headed into this area. Cities are full of geometric shapes, from the circular forms of arches and domes to the varied curved and straight angles that you can get in ledges and barriers, and the different geometric shapes that you can get from foreground objects that you can incorporate into your images. Incorporating different angles and shapes into your compositions adds a dynamic and visually appealing element to your photos. Try experimenting with different angles and perspectives to emphasize these geometric forms. I really like this composition as you've got this vertical railing in the foreground, then you've got the building on the upper right with the horizontal rows of apartments, and in direct contrast you've got this bulb-shaped lamp sticking up on the walkway. It's an interesting mixture of different geometric shapes. This is another shot with some interesting geometry. I deliberately positioned the camera so that I could get this diagonally angled barrier in the foreground. Then you've got a curve on the right hand side. You've got some kind of odd oblong shaped container on the ground. Plus you've got your horizontal apartment buildings on the upper right, horizontal office windows on the left, and to top it off you've got the vertical building straight in front. So if you're in the city, look for geometric shapes and see if you can weave them into your compositions. I'll try not to say the word which references this subject, as I've said it too many times in a couple of videos already. So here goes. You can add a layer of deeper meaning to your streetscapes and urban landscapes if you capture old and new elements within the frame. These kind of architectural differences are apparent in many different cities around the world, such as this new Gherkin building with this old church in the front of it, and you've got St Paul's Cathedral with the city skyline next to it. It adds a deeper meaning to your images about history and modernity, which some of your viewers will find interesting and insightful. So go out and shoot some juxtaposition, contrasting images that highlight history and modernity. For this shoot, I mainly use the Recoat GR3 with a 28mm lens. A wide-angle lens is the way to go when shooting streetscapes and urban landscapes, because you want to get as much of the street, the building, and everything else in the frame. However, when I wanted to punch in for a narrower composition, or I couldn't be asked to walk, I used the crop modes 35mm and 50mm respectively. The takeaway from this is that wide-angle lenses are a must for your streetscapes and urban landscapes. I generally stick to aperture priority. For streetscapes and landscapes, I mainly work with a deeper depth of field, and therefore I used apertures ranging from f3.2 for the undercover areas, and then mainly from f8 up to f14 for shots where I wanted a maximum depth field. Plus, if you regularly follow my videos, I always use auto ISO because it allows me to work in any conditions during the day. Gloomy, sunny, undercover, or anything else, which means I don't have to worry about the ISO or the shutter speed. So I use a broad range from 100 to 3200 with a minimum shutter speed of 1/250th of a second. Plus I use my go-to autofocus settings, auto area autofocus in the center mode. So I recommend using these settings if you want to shoot urban landscapes and streetscapes quickly and easily. So what kind of streets or cities do you have where you live that you can use photograph streetscapes and urban landscapes? Please let me know down below. Just to let you know, I finally created 12 black and white street photography presets. I wanted to create the best quality presets possible, so I went into detail on each one. If you're interested, they're currently on an introductory sale on my website. The link is in the description below. So urban landscapes, streetscapes, go out and shoot them, rinse and repeat. However, if you want to learn how to shoot urban landscapes at night, then go and check out this video here. Until we meet again, go forth and create.